welcome to our digital literacy podcast. I'm Mrs. Meschter, librarian at Chinook Middle School.
I'm Ms. Carlson at Rainier.
Sorry. I'm Ms. Gunn. I'm at Highline, and I'm actually at Highline today. Hi, everybody. So today we've been talking about digital media literacy in lots of different ways over the last couple weeks, some with like really big ideas, some a little bit narrower. Today, we are going to try and keep our focus, if possible, on the idea of digital privacy. And we're going to end with some kind of specific user tips that we can do. But Ms. Meschter, I know you had some things you wanted to say about digital privacy, so why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about privacy because when we think about digital citizenship, the idea that students manage their own privacy and their own personal data is part of digital citizenship. And it's something that as educators, when we're evaluating digital tools for education, we try to think about privacy and how the data that's collected will be sent out. And it's something that we don't always talk a lot about. And so like in our school district, we have a digital review committee, and sometimes tools that people want to use that they've heard are pretty awesome are denied because they don't match our district's privacy policy. And we try to manage students' privacy, but I think there's such a strong correlation between protecting passwords and protecting your own data that it's just important to come back to. It is an important aspect of digital citizenship that you know what's private, that your stuff is safe, and that you keep it safe and secure.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing from a school perspective of yes, it's the school system's responsibility to do a lot of that management, but then also how are we teaching students to be able to do that management for themselves once they're out of the confines of a school system, right? Because I admit I'm somebody who's oh, I heard about this cool new tool and I'm want to create an account and I don't read the fine print and I just make a user and tie it to Google and woohoo, I'm off and running. So that's maybe not the best example of how to do that for our students, right?
Right.
So do either of you guys do a better job of that than I do in my personal life?
Well, I was just thinking the big giant Facebook hack a couple days ago iterates the dangers of using a single sign-on for all these digital accounts. And Facebook, you can log into many online things with your Facebook account or with your Google account. And once one of those data areas is breached, it affects everything. And so way back in the day, I totally used my Facebook logon for everything. And then I was like, wait, what am I doing? I don't even know what this company is. And I've retracted a lot of that. I've taken that back and
I've actually started taking off passwords from Google Chrome that, how you can have them saved and it'll save them to your password manager. And a colleague of mine here at Mount Rainier had her home email hacked and somebody was sending out messages through her home email and it took her, several days to get that straightened up, plus a password change, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that this propensity that we all have to want the computer to save all of our information for us is not always a safe way to do things. So I do think that we have to be really cognizant of that. But I think we also need to be cognizant of what we're actually putting out on media. Part of privacy is not just about passwords and protocols. It's also about thinking about what you're actually putting out there and whether you want the whole world to see it forever.
Yep, absolutely. It's totally a two-way street. And I do think as educators, we spend more time talking about the what we are putting out versus the hidden stuff with what companies are allowed to take from us if we agree to things. And I know one of our former colleagues was a big proponent of DuckDuckGo as a search engine,
right?
Because Google as a search engine remembers a lot of stuff about you as a user, and that's why you end up with targeted ads and all sorts of things, which maybe there's some pros to that sort of thing, but it's an interesting thing to be more cognizant of so that the choices that we're making are intentional choices, not just default choices.
Right. And so in terms of digital habits, so the privacy settings you agree to when you agree to an app or a program change all the time. And you don't always get notice. Well, you're supposed to, but I try every year to go through and review the privacy, what I'm agreeing to and what I want to save and store. And I have location services turned off on everything on my mobile phone. Like there's nothing like Target does not track me through the store the way that some people do it. Like I have location turned off. Um, so I just constantly trying to review my own privacy collection. And I talk about this with students, like you can turn off the geocaching location service on your camera and on your pictures so that it's not cached on your pictures. Because there's just all these ways that data is embedded in what we share out, which is why protecting your password is important, because once you know all that stuff, like you're just like putting yourself out for the whole world to see and to know and exploit. And so
yeah,
there's some pretty good extensions too that you can add to your Google Chrome, like Disconnect or Privacy Badger, that can help keep and Ad Blocker. Ad Block Plus. I've gotten a hold of those and put them on my computer, and they take a lot of the, like when you go to a website, it will send little packets of information around to, you know, themselves and other places and whatnot, and that blocks a lot of that stuff, and it keeps a lot of what you do private. Not that that's a replacement for a good password or for, you know, some, you know, common sense, but at the same time, it can also help go a long way. And if you use that in conjunction with something like a search engine like DuckDuckGo, that can help ensure some of that privacy.
definitely.
and you can navigate Chrome in incognito mode. So like there's the other
Without being signed into it, which I do think again is a challenge for our students, because
Yes.
if you're using a district provided device, you're logging in a certain way. That's remembering you. So
agreed.
well,
And
one of the things,
obviously a single sign-on remembers you. So like that's our other.
right. Although I haven't done a ton of research into like paid password manager systems versus like just having a browser remember your passwords. So I have a colleague here who I know, she and her husband signed up for like a password management system because they felt like that was, and it has like multiple sign-on on the like front end of it for them. So I don't know if you guys know anything more about those than I do, because I totally get the like, you need a password for everything and it can be really challenging and you don't want to use the same one over and over again, but how do you remember 55 different passwords, right?
And you know, we all know that we shouldn't write our passwords down, and yet we do. Or you know,
just don't carry it in your purse, because if your purse gets stolen, not a good plan.
Right. So you had some tips for how to.
Yeah, I have one basic tip for like ways to create a strong password, but also make it memorable for you, because I think that's the thing that is most challenging for folks, is to like, how do I create a strong password but have it also be something that I can remember? So I have a couple of examples. This is certainly not the only way to do this. It's just a way that I like personally. So I'm going to share my screen here if I can make it work. Give me just a second, because I realize that I don't want you to see this first. Hold on. Let's go. You all don't need to see my email.
No.
There we go. That's a better thing to share. Okay. So I'll put us in present mode here. So what I like, is like taking something that like you is close to your heart that maybe the whole world doesn't know about you, right? So one example is a favorite book or a character. So I chose Harry Potter. And then you can do some substitutions and replacements. So like Harry Potter is the thing that I'm going to remember. And then when I turn it into my password, I use some substitutions and play around with capital letters or symbols or numbers. So like the H is still the same, but the A becomes an @ symbol. And then I decide to capitalize the Y, and then the E becomes a 3. So you can, it's still my phrase, but I've mixed it up a bit so it's not the exact phrase, right? So that's just
is the O a 0 then in that case?
I think in this one it is a 0. It's hard to tell in this particular font, but yeah, that's another replacement that you can do.
The trick is remembering that part of it.
Right. Yeah, but if you maybe make some rules for yourself around like, here are the letters that are always going to be this symbol, or here's the number that's always going to replace. So even if your phrases change, how you're manipulating the letters is consistent, right?
Right. Like I can use a similar font, password, but keep the O and O and replace all the T's with plus signs, right? Like
Exactly.
it's similar, but it's just, it's
Yep.
still different.
Totally. So another example, The Princess Bride, maybe that's a movie that I really like. And then this is what it looks like when I turn it into a password, right? So same kind of deal. And you can probably tell on here that I have a tendency to turn E's into 3s and I's into 1s, or, other kinds of things. I like your T as pluses. That's one I haven't done before. And then the last one, a favorite song or a band, same kind of concept. But so I think what's important about this is that you choose things that that you like, but maybe aren't the thing that you always post about on your Facebook page. So like if your Facebook username is Harry Potter Lover 73, then maybe don't use Harry Potter as part of your, password, right?
Right. Another tip, and I don't have a slide to share, but you can combine two things that you love. So like you can combine Harry Potter and the Princess Bride into one password, like the Harry Bride or
the Harry Bride, the Princess Potter.
Yes, exactly.
You can combine them as long as you can remember them. And when you combine those two kind of weird, like when you juxtapose those two things together, it makes it a lot harder to guess.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but another thing is you don't want to use something that a lot of people know. They always say, don't use your telephone numbers, don't use your birthdays, don't use your
anniversaries,
don't use your social security numbers and that kind of thing.
Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Don't use the word password because everybody uses that.
Yep.
Right. So there's just
I always think too that if you put one word backwards, sometimes that's kind of a good way to, if somebody were to, not that everybody's going to know what's in your mind, but if somebody were to get a hold of what they think is your password, if you have one word backwards, it's harder for them to snag it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm always impressed when I see students who are like signing into something that's their personal thing and their password is, 19 letters long. I feel like, yay! Like, I hope that it's something secure, but 19 letters feels better than 6. So good for you, kid. So, all right. Well, anything else we want to add today?
Well, I think just a reminder that strong passwords are essential for digital citizenship, and data privacy is important for us as educators as well as for students. Like, we just need to bear in mind that digital citizenship is encompassing, and it's not just, cyberbullying, right? Like, it's all of these other components.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. It seems like we're all getting busy where we are, so it's time to wrap it up. But it was lovely to see you guys, and we'll be back next time.
Yep. See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.